the bold and the beautiful. Steffy's tragedy ignites war between the Forresters and the Loganza scandal that changes everything. Chaos erupted in the pristine halls of University Hospital when Steffy Forrester walked in on a scene that shattered her world in a single, brutal instant. What she saw wasn't a misunderstanding, a misstep, or a moment that could be explained away. It was betrayal, raw, undeniable, and explosive. As she pushed open the door to Dr. John Finnegan's office, her husband, the father of her unborn child, was locked in a kiss with none other than Dr. Bridget Forrester, a Logan, her aunt by marriage, her rival by blood. The gasp never had time to settle in her throat before it turned into a scream. "What the hell is this?" Steffy's voice sliced through the air like a blade. Bridget stumbled back, guilt written all over her face. But before she could say a word, Steffy's hand flew across it. The slap echoed through the office, a crack of thunder before the storm. Finn lunged forward instinctively to stop Steffy from hitting Bridget again. But in the chest, arms flailing, tempers flaring, his hand caught Steffy the wrong way. One moment she was standing, the next she was on the floor. Her body slumped awkwardly, her eyes wide not with pain, but with realization. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. The hospital rushed to action, but it was too late. The baby was gone. In the blink of an eye, Steffy's grief became rage. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was war. She didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She rose, a fury burning through her that demanded answers, demanded blood. Rich Forrester and Taylor Hayes, her parents, wasted no time choosing sides. There were no excuses. No benefit of the doubt. Their daughter had just lost her child because her husband had broken his vows, and a Logan again was at the center of the destruction. Rich stormed into the hospital boardroom demanding immediate action. His voice boomed through the corridors, a father defending his wounded daughter. Bridget Forrester has violated the Hippocratic Oath, the ethics of this institution, and the trust of this family, he thundered. Suspend her license. Get her out, Taylor, rarely one to explode, backed him up with ice-cold clarity. She called for Finn's suspension to not out of vengeance, but because the hospital had failed to protect her daughter from harm, emotional and physical. The Forresters were unified in fury. But then came Brooke Logan. Predictably, inevitably, she defended her daughter without hesitation. Bridget didn't mean for this to happen, Brooke insisted, eyes brimming with desperation, her voice cracking under pressure. It was one kiss, one moment. You can't destroy her over a mistake. But Brooke's pleas only poured gasoline on a long-burning fire. To the Forresters, it wasn't just a kiss. It was yet another betrayal from the Logan family, a pattern of selfishness and boundary breaking that had tormented them for decades. The hospital board was split down the middle. Half Forrester allies, demanding consequences. Half Logan sympathizers, calling for mercy. The boardroom became a battlefield. Accusations flew. Allegiances cracked. The old Logan Forrester war reignited with a vengeance, more personal and more bitter than ever before. And what a Finn! The once respected, once beloved doctor found himself on his knees, literally begging for forgiveness in the hallway outside Steffy's room. His voice trembled, his hands shook. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he confessed. It was the late-night shifts. We were exhausted. We leaned on each other. But I never stopped loving you. I never meant to leave this family. I never wanted this. But his words were drowned by the silence in Steffy's eyes. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She looked at him like a stranger. Because in that moment, that's exactly what he was. Steffy didn't want revenge. She wanted power. She wanted control. In the days that followed her miscarriage, she emerged not broken, but sharper, colder, calculated. She announced her decision to separate from Finn not as a punishment, but as a declaration. I will not allow anyone to destroy me again, she said. Not you. Not Bridget. Not anyone. Her pain became armor. Her grief became fuel. She swore not just to rebuild her life, but to take control of everything that had failed her, starting with the hospital. Steffy began making calls, pulling strings, tapping into her influence on the board. As Coup of Forrester Creations, she knew how to wield power. Now she planned to wield it inside those sterile hospital walls. No more betrayals. No more weakness. She would turn this place into a fortress zone that served patients, not personal agendas. Meanwhile, Bridget's career dangled by a thread. Every step she took through the hospital halls was followed by whispers, judgment, eyes that once respected her now questioning her every move. Brooke tried to shield her, but even Brooke's power was slipping. The Logan name, once dominant, now looked like a liability. And Ridge. Ridge was relentless. Not just because he was angry, but because he was heartbroken for his daughter. He saw Steffy spiral before after losing Phoebe after years of trauma, but this was different. This was a transformation. He went to Finn, man to man, and didn't hold back. You were the one good thing in her life that wasn't tainted by betrayal. You had one job, protect her. And you failed. Even Liam Spencer, long entangled in Steffy's past, offered support. Whatever you need, he told her, I'm here. But Steffy wasn't interested in romantic consolation. She didn't need saving. She didn't need a man to hold her hand. She needed strategy. She needed action. Taylor, torn between her medical ethics and her maternal rage, found herself in emotional limbo. She didn't condone violence against Bridget, but she couldn't defend her either. Her loyalty was with Steffy, fully and without question. And as the hospital board considered formal charges of misconduct against both Finn and Bridget, Taylor made her position clear. This isn't about vengeance. It's about standards. It's about protecting future patients. No one is above accountability. In the weeks that followed, the fallout only grew more vicious. Internal investigations were launched. Lawyers were called. The media caught wind of the scandal, splashing headlines about the doctor love triangle that ended in tragedy. Protesters even showed up at the hospital, some defending Bridget, others demanding justice for Steffy. The hospital's board meetings turned into war zones. Old friendships crumbled. New alliances formed. And through it all, Steffy stood tall. She held press conferences, took meetings with hospital executives, and maneuvered through board politics like a seasoned general. She wasn't just a grieving mother. She was a woman on a mission. This hospital needs to remember what it stands for, she declared in a tense public statement. Compassion, yes, but also accountability, trust, integrity. We will rebuild, but not on broken promises. As Bridget awaited her disciplinary hearing and Finn lived day to day not knowing if he'd ever see his family whole again. The world of the bold and the beautiful was irrevocably altered. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a reckoning. Steffy's miscarriage was more than a personal loss. It was the spark that reignited a decades-old family feud and sent shockwaves through every corner of their world. What began with a kiss has spiraled into a battle for ethics, power, and redemption. Lines have been drawn. Loyalties have been tested. And the storm is far from over. Because Steffy Forrester has just begun. The bold and the beautiful. After the false Steffy scandal goes viral, shaking Forrester, the hospital, and the Logan Forrester truce to the core just when it seemed the dust might settle from the chaos and Dr. Finn Finnegan's effusive forbidden kiss, the heartbreak, the shocking miscarriage, another firestorm exploded. And this time, it went public. The moment that should have remained behind closed hospital doors, a private tragedy for the Forrester family, was broadcast to the entire world with a single accidental upload. A young nurse, overwhelmed by the chaos and too to understand the gravity of what she'd captured, had recorded part of the incident. Steffy Forrester's anguished cry, the sting of her hand across Bridget Forrester's face, and then most painfully her fall to the ground. The clip, only seconds long, hit social media before the nurse realized what she'd done. But by then, it was too late. It spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags trended. Steffy Forrester, hospital scandal, Bridget exposed, protect Steffy, fire Finn. The world didn't just watch, he took sides. Lines were drawn across the internet. Some accused Steffy of resorting to violence. Others condemned Bridget as a homewrecker. And still more turned their fury on the hospital itself, demanding accountability, reforms, even leadership resignations. The comments section on every platform became a battleground of outrage, judgment, and raw emotion. Forrester Creations, already rattled by Steffy's miscarriage and its emotional fallout, now faced a corporate nightmare. Steffy wasn't just a grieving mother, she was the face of their latest global campaign. The imagery of power, poise, and modern womanhood now clashed violently with that viral video. The PR team scrambled. Questions poured in from partners, retailers, and international buyers. Was Steffy stable enough to lead a brand campaign? Would the scandal hurt the Forrester image? Could the company survive if the public turned against its brightest star? Eric Forrester, the patriarch, stepped into the firestorm with a calm but firm hand. His love for Steffy was unquestioned, but so was his responsibility to the legacy of the Forrester name. In a tense boardroom meeting, he made the call. Steffy would be pulled from the upcoming campaign temporarily. Not as punishment, but as containment. The company needed time, space, damage control. But not everyone agreed. Hope Logan, creative lead of Hope for the Future, was blunt. We need to protect our brand. If the public sees this as an extension of the Logan Forrester feud or starts associating HFTF with scandal, everything we built is at risk. It wasn't personal, but it hit like a knife. Steffy, still reeling from the emotional wreckage of her marriage, was now being pushed out of her professional role too. But Steffy refused to go quietly. The same fire that once built her empire reignited. She called a press conference and it filtered through PR, not managed by lawyers. Raw, direct, her truth. Standing in front of a wall of cameras, Steffy didn't flinch. She wore black, simple, strong. Her voice never wavered. Yes, I slapped a woman who kissed my husband. Yes, I fell. And yes, I lost my child because of that fall. That's what happened. And it's my right to tell it before the world twists it. I am not a monster. I am a woman who was betrayed in a place where I should have felt safe, my husband's hospital. I am not ashamed of my pain. I am not ashamed of my reaction. I won't be silenced, and I will not apologize for defending my family. What happened to me can't be undone, but it can be spoken about. Because too many women are gaslit, shamed, and silenced when they're hurt by the people they trust the most. Not anymore. Not me. The impact was immediate. Media outlets replayed the speech in full. Social platforms erupted again, but this time, many rallied behind Steffy. Celebrities, influencers, activists began resharing her words. Her voice had struck a nerve. The narrative began to shift from scandal to strength, from controversy to courage. But with every action came a reaction. And the Logans weren't staying quiet. Bridget, now the face of public disgrace, found herself hunted by paparazzi, hounded online, and ostracized at the hospital. Patients canceled appointments. Colleagues avoided her in the hall. Posters demanding her resignation appeared overnight on the hospital's front steps. Protesters began organizing outside. "We trusted you" signs waved in the wind. Brooke Logan, ever the fierce protector, unleashed her full fury. She hired top legal representation, launched a defamation counterattack, and warned the hospital board that any disciplinary action would face massive litigation. "My daughter made a mistake," Brooke snapped in an emergency press appearance. But she did not deserve to be assaulted or crucified by a media circus. Bridget has saved lives for decades. She deserves respect and fairness, not a public execution. She wasn't just defending her daughter, she was attacking Steffy's growing moral high ground. Privately, Brooke seethed at Bridget's silence. Publicly, she called for civility. But the undercurrent was war. Logan versus Forrester. Again. And caught in the middle, lost in the swirl of headlines, outrage, and heartbreak. Finn, once a rising star in medicine and a devoted husband, he now walked the halls of the hospital like a ghost. Patients hesitated to speak to him. Nurses avoided his eye. His supervisors, once allies, were suddenly quiet behind closed doors. And at home, there was no home. Steffy had made her choice. She needed distance. Time. He respected that. But it shattered him. The guilt didn't just eat at him, it consumed him. He'd never meant to betray her. The kiss had been stupid. Brief. A lapse. But the consequences were eternal. Now he questioned everything: his judgment, his future in medicine, even his ability to be a father to Hayes without Steffy beside him. He wanted to make it right, but didn't know how. Apologies rang hollow. Words were weapons. He stood in the crossfire, burned by both sides. Hospital leadership convened emergency meetings, ethics panels, HR investigations. Legal threats hung in the air like smoke. Rumors swirled that both Bridget and Finn might face suspension. Some whispered about permanent termination. But no one knew where the hammer would fall first. The hospital was no longer a sanctuary, it was a battlefield. Inside Forrester Creations, the board meetings turned colder. Hope continued to push for boundaries, even suggesting a temporary shift in leadership away from both Steffy and the Logan legacy. Zende and RJ kept their heads down, but even they felt the tension. The company's future now hung on public perception more than design. Eric, torn between generations, tried to mediate. Donna begged him to protect Bridget. Taylor urged him to protect Steffy. But the truth was, no matter what he chose, someone would be hurt. And more importantly, Forrester Creations itself might never be the same. As days turned into weeks, the war raged on. Legal motions filed. News stories dissected every detail. Public opinion swayed like a pendulum. And through it all, Steffy kept pushing forward. She refused to step back. She met with women's advocacy groups, sat for interviews, used her pain as a platform. Her message was simple: betrayal has consequences, and women deserve to be believed when they say enough. Bridget, meanwhile, remained mostly silent, guarded by lawyers, protected by PR. But whispers suggested she was preparing a countersuit. Defamation, career sabotage, personal harassment. Brooke fed every fire, using her influence to reframe the narrative. This wasn't seduction, she told one network. It was a moment of weakness. That doesn't make my daughter a villain. But the public didn't buy it. Not fully. Not yet. As for Finn, he finally took leave from the hospital. Too many angry stares. Too much confusion. He disappeared from the spotlight, retreating into silence, unsure if he'd ever return to medicine or to the family he once had. The fallout is far from over. The war between the Logans and Forresters has entered a new phase, fiercer, more public, more personal than ever. Reputations are shattering. Empires are cracking. And amidst it all, Steffy stands at the center, not just as a victim of betrayal, but as a symbol of resilience, fighting to turn a tragedy into a reckoning that might reshape not only her life, but the entire world around her.